Hello everyone, I'm Alex Zaves, and today on the Arts and Crafts Show I would like to talk with you about how do you go about pricing your art and craft. There's a real simple techniques, and first I'm going to cover the one with wholesale. If you want to price your artwork for wholesale, what you do is you do the 3 times rule. You find out what your material costs are for what you're making, and you multiply it by 3. Let's say what it costs for you is $3. You multiply it by 3, you have $9. That's your wholesale price. Now, not all things that you make are you're going to be able to sell for wholesale. You won't get your time out of it, for example, but some things can. When I started making candles in Hawaii 40 years ago, I had a big sand pit. I made molds in the sand. I would pour the hot wax into the sand, and voila, I had a candle. And then when it cooled and dried, I took an airbrush, a painting tool, and with stencils, I would spray onto the sand, seal it, and sell it for wholesale. I could sell 6, 7, maybe 8 of them that I can make in an hour. And then I would sell it to the local candle shop. Other things can be done also this way. I know a potter who just makes really quickly. He knows how to make these small little bowls. He sells them wholesale. Painters, they're not going to sell their original painting for wholesale price, but they can make them into prints, package them up, sell them into these small little greeting cards or note cards, and sell them wholesale. So the 3 times rule, $3 is what it costs for your materials, $3 is your profit, and $3 is what your labor or your wages. Okay? Generally speaking, that is the rule. And then there's the 6 times rule. Things that you cannot make for wholesale, that you're going to sell retail. And by doing that, you start again, let's say it's $3 that you have for your material costs, times 6 is $18, and that's what's going to be your selling guideline for retail. Maybe you can only make 1 or 2 of these an hour, so we're looking at 2 an hour. Let's say you're looking $36. Then you got to subtract what it costs for each thing that you're making that you put into your artwork. When you start selling retail, then you need to open up some kind of a store. And what we do is we open up a store by going to a crafts market, flea market, a market, farmer's market, a market where we can sell our work. Art market is a better one because it's more focused in on the artists. 90% of the show will be the arts and the crafts. So, but when you start doing the markup 6 times, then you're taking into account the cost of materials, let's say $3, plus your gas to get to the show, how much does the booth cost, maybe on each, the booth fee is $50, $100, so 25 to 60%, 60 cents comes off of each thing that you sell, and that's why you bump it up to 6 times the cost. Why remember when we started doing this 40 years ago, these numbers were very magical to us. 3 times wholesale, 6 times retail. Are they real? Do they really work? Yes, they really do work. It does take a little tweaking involved here, because what you'll need to do is when you go to wherever you're going to sell at the art show, you'll need to see what other people are selling around you. And if it's your first show, which is what I'm trying to address at this point, then you are beginning to learn how to apply these prices to what you make. So if somebody's sitting up next to you or not far from you, or you've already had a show before, you've seen what other people sell it for, you know that you can maybe get 6 times that price is normal, maybe 5, maybe 7, maybe 8, especially if you're the only one at the show that makes it. Your work is extra nice. Your work is special that other people don't have. If it's like jewelry and it's not a simple beaded jewelry, but it has a lot of different extra designs in it, a little bit more complicated, you can get the better price. And sometimes you'll be selling your wholesale price not at the shows as well, but rather than 3 times, you can probably get 4 or 5 at that at the shows. Problem is, if you're selling at shows where you've sold to somebody in the same city or town or nearby town, and they're selling your work, if they come to the show and they see that you're not selling it for the same price that they're selling it in their store, in this case, $3 times 3 is $9, and if you're selling it for 12 and they're selling it for, they bump it up to 18 at the store because they double it for retail also. They're not going to be very happy with you. They may not even reorder from you again. So this is the rule. 3 times for wholesale, 3 times 3, $9. They'll bump it up to 18 at their store, a brick and mortar store that's already been set up. You go to the show, you do the 6 times rule. If it costs you $3 to make, times 6, 3 times is 18. Okay, that's when you're just getting started and you've been making things off and on from your job. You don't really know exactly what you've got into it, but you're going to have to make an approximation for the show. And part-timers who maybe got 1 or 2 or 5 shows underneath their belt, they've been able to do some shows on the weekend, they'll already become familiar with what this rule is about. It's basic, it's been around for a long time, and it does work. Now, the other side of this is when you start to think about making your business full-time. That is when you start thinking about what you need to make at the shows to cover your costs for your life, basically. Your rent, your utilities, your food. So you'll need to think about how much money you can make to cover your bills. Maybe you've got a car payment you've got to make. Maybe you're not renting, you've got a mortgage you're trying to make every month. So you'll need to decide how much do you think you can make every hour. And though we are not really working on an hourly wage because we're the boss, we're the owner of what we do, we still think in certain terms like that. So let's come up with, let's say that your bills every month are $3,000 for your mortgage, your utilities, your kids going to some private school or, private play, like a Montessori type of playground. Your kids are young. But we've all got our own, bills that we've got to pay. And we know what our expenses are. But let's say it's $3,000 and you want to figure yourself, you're going to try and make $30 an hour. And that 6 times rule, when you're selling in the retail place, it's $3 times 6 is 18. Maybe you can make 2 of them in 1 hour. That's $36. And you start to carve away the expenses, the show. Maybe you're looking at maybe $26 an hour. Pretty close to what you want. Other things that you're making may make it up to $32 or $34 an hour. So you're starting to be able to cover your costs if you're making $30 an hour. You're doing your 40-hour week, and that's about $1,200 a week. Then you're selling at the shows. I know some people do 3 or 4 shows a month, and that's possible. And so your bills, if you're able to make, let me see, what is that? 1,200 times 4, that's $4,800. You can cover your $3,000 cost for your bills, but then you've got your extra bills for your business. And that is where, from the $3,000 to the $4,800 fit in. And then you've got to think about making profit on top of that just a little bit so you can grow your business. You can get better, you can put more money into your wholesaling, buying, okay? Because right now if you're buying something wholesale for $300, and you're getting this much, maybe for $600, you can get 3 times that amount. So that's basically the rules for pricing your work. I'll put it in the section below, the 3 times, 6 times rule. Once you are beginning to become part of the arts and show community, the family, you start doing this year after year, your work will become better. You'll be maybe getting $40, $50 an hour. Remember, we said it's 40 hours a week, but it's never going to be 40 hours a week. You're looking at more like 40, 50, 60 hours a week, especially if you're doing a show every other weekend or every weekend, because a show alone is going to be at least 20 hours. 10 hours for the show each day, that's 20 hours, and driving time back and forth, maybe a hotel expense. Unless you do some camping at the show, you stay with friends and family, or you live close by. I have another video about camping at the show. But if you've got to take all this into consideration, and then you've got your shows under control, you've got your budget under control. But you got to remember, sometimes there are problems at the show. Sometimes you make a lot more money, and sometimes the show gets rained out and you make very little money. So you got to even average the shows together. But you'll learn this over time. But you've already got your feet wet. You're doing the shows. You've got your booth, and you're all set up. You've got your 3 times rule, 6 times rule, and you know where you stand within your own community. If you're a potter or a stained glass worker or a candle maker or a jeweler, you'll know where you fit, where your work fits in. You'll know how to price it, because you'll all price it pretty close together depending upon the show. So that's basically the rules, and I hope that gives you some kind of insight how to price your work. It's kind of simple, but when you're just starting out, it sort of goes, that's a little magical number. Can I believe it? Yes. A little bit of faith, sure, in the beginning, but you'll begin to understand these rules, sure enough. And they do work, and it's been working for me for 40 plus years now. So I hope this works for you. Any questions you have, things I didn't make quite clear, or you have your own personal experiences, I would really enjoy listening to them. Put them in the comment section below. There's always something new to learn about how your work is being sold. And nowadays, you don't even need to necessarily go to the shows to find out what your work is selling at. You can go online now. We didn't have internet when we first started out. We went to the different shopping malls to check it out. But now you can go online. You can see what other people are doing on Etsy. You can tweak your work, improve it, make sure it's not being copied, for example. And you know the prices even before you get to the show at times. Still, you don't know who your neighbors are at the show, and they may have a whole different setup going on there. But they'll be working on that 3 times, 6 times rule also. And I hope that helps, and thank you. And I'll see you next time at the Arts and Crafts Show.